out, mate. You order your men to row out to the Dauntlers, they do what they do best. Robert's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. There you are with 2 ships. The makings of your very own fleet. Of course, you'll take the Grandest as your flagship, and who's to argue? But what of the Pearl? Name me captain. I'll sail under your colors. I'll give you 10% of me plunder, and you get to introduce yourself as Commodore Barbosa.
What's up, everybody? Wilhelm here, and welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a interesting thing that was totally unexpected by myself and probably many others, but there is some news from the cabin. We do have confirmation that a wipe has been announced for early July 2020, and they will be rolling out a new map for both the PC and Xbox, which is kind of cool. It's been an interesting season. I know that I personally stopped playing some months ago for Season 3, and I'm kind of looking forward to Season 4, depending on what the changes are for the map and some of the systems that they've mentioned. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. They mentioned that they're going to be growing the dev team, which is always good. I know that they've been looking around for kind of a lead game designer to give the game some direction. The lack thereof has definitely been shown over the last year and a half, with just the lack of updates and content being pushed to the game, which is pretty sad. But hopefully, now that they said that they're intending to grow the development team, they'll be able to get some people in there to actually give some new life to this game. Hopefully they can get that done. Or maybe even bring some of the people over from the ARC DLC content. Who knows? We'll see what ends up happening with that. They are going to be releasing a New World map. Now, the thing about the New World map is that we will be losing the NA PVE clusters. They will be renaming the European ones, which will remain, and that'll just be considered the official PVE network cluster. And then the PvP cluster, they don't really mention, but I'm going to assume that they only are going to have a PvP official network cluster and a PvE. Probably PvE is going to be located in Europe, while PvP remains in North America, but we'll see. They haven't actually said anything about that. For the new map, they say that they're going to be effectively redesigning the map so that lower level players will have an easier chance of, I guess, leveling up and experiencing the game, while incentivizing the higher level players who are going to be engaging in higher level PvE content to go to different areas. So it sounds like they're going to have maybe a noob zone or a safe zone starting area for people to get into the game and kind of learn the ropes before they sail off into like straight up PvP waters, which is going to be interesting. There isn't anything specifically mentioned on how they plan to execute on this, but I'm just extrapolating based off of what they say here, as to what they're intending to do, which I think is probably a good thing. One thing that I noticed is that this type of game is not exactly friendly to new players after the season launches. There's a lot of large pre-mades that engage with the game early on, and there can be a pretty high level of toxicity, where if you're a new player, a new group of players, or even a solo new player, which is probably the worst case scenario, you can get completely and utterly destroyed, you and all your things, with seemingly no reason to it, which can be pretty brutal. And I know that it's turned off a lot of players to pursuing the game further because they just lost all their stuff to a bunch of high-level people, and that was it. And then they moved on to other games, because why wouldn't they? So I'm kind of glad that they're trying to at least take a shot at this, and again, no specifics here, but I'm glad that that's what their intention is. Another good intention is that they're claiming that they're planning to shift the gameplay from land to sea. I'm not exactly sure, well, what they plan to how they plan to execute that, but I definitely agree that the incentives of a sea-based sailing game should definitely push you into the ocean and engage with the content on the ocean, as opposed to, well, just sitting on your island and constantly grinding defenses to protect your stuff. So see how they do that. Definitely a good intention. The next good intention is that they're planning to shift from PvE elements, gameplay elements, to PvP elements. So I'm going to assume that that comes in possibly two forms. One is the amount of grind that it takes on land to get resources will probably be drastically reduced, so that you have an easier opportunity to deploy a ship or be out engaging with other players, so the grind won't necessarily be as bad as it was before, which will be a pretty good thing, I think, overall for the health of the community, as well as player retention and obviously new players. So I think that's probably a good thing. One thing that I definitely like to see executed on is not to totally trivialize PvE. I think it needs to be a part of the game, but at the same time, the grind can't be so bad that when you lose, like, I don't know, a single ship, you're completely devastated and set back, like, by 5 hours, 10 hours. So it'll be interesting to see how they balance that, but I generally agree that they do need to shift some of the gameplay elements away from PvE grind and into PvP, or at least bridge that gap so that it's a little bit quicker. The next thing is that they're stating that they have new goals and the intent for monthly content drops. So that would be great. It would be pretty freaking amazing if they had that at the same quality and consistency of Ark Survival Evolved in the early 2015 and even up to this point. But the early 2015, 2016, 2017 days of Ark Survival Evolved saw a sometimes a once a week patch that added a significant amount of content and bug fixes to the game. So they're saying that they want to execute on new goals and have monthly content updates, which would honestly be, depending on the quality and the frequency of those updates, it might revive this game and bring it back and put it back in the limelight, which would be pretty cool. I highly doubt that they're going to do this, but never know. We'll see what they do. With that said, they mention a couple of new elements or systems. They don't really define what these are or go into any details, so I can only assume and extrapolate what I think it might be. One of the new elements that they mentioned that they want to bring the game into the world map is trade winds. So trade winds, I'm assuming, is going to be a revamped system of the way that the previous seasons have used the wind direction. And if you didn't know this already, the wind direction is always going to be, it's like a clock. Basically, your wind direction is going to be synced up to 3-hour intervals, so every 3 hours it's going to change by a quarter. And so what I'm assuming is that they're going to use trade winds as either a new system by which perhaps there might be a quest, right, where you're at, I don't know, a trade hub, and there's a trade wind window, that opportunity that opens up where you can travel from the trade hub A, and it blows you at max speed to trade hub B, but only if you follow the trade wind, which might only be so large or may only last so long, so you might have an incentive to use the trade wind that comes up either so often or at random or maybe based off of a quest to deliver items for gold or something like that. That might be an interesting system of trade winds. That, or maybe they will just get rid of the wind mechanic almost entirely, since most people seem to totally skip out on most of the wind mechanics by just using handling sails, some extremely high level quality blueprinted handling sails to just kind of bypass most of the wind mechanics. And maybe trade winds will be a specific thing to maybe like a specific sail. I don't know. We'll see. An interesting idea. We'll see how they execute on it. Next one is farms. I'm not really sure what farms mean. I mean, apart from just growing fruits and vegetables, maybe a Farmville simulator, so you just don't have to do it. Maybe you can assign NPCs to do tasks for you, which would be super ideal, so you don't have to do the farming yourself. Warehouses, which are interesting. I'm assuming that a warehouse might have something to do with maybe some form of offline protection. Perhaps something whereby you buy a warehouse in, say, an NPC run like trade hub, right? Or maybe maybe it looks like a physical asset where you walk up to a warehouse and one of the NPC cities, or like imagine a free port city, some of the larger free port cities expanded, and there's like warehouses available for you to keep your items in, and it acts kind of like the upload mechanic in Ark, whereby you can just upload your ships and materials and your booty, which would be really cool. I think that if this warehouses, whatever they mean by this, because again, I'm just completely speculating, if this is a place where you can upload your hard-earned work, your ships, your blueprints, and things like that to a certain degree, like maybe there's only a limited amount of space, or maybe there's upkeep, whereby you have to pay gold for additional slots in your warehouse, or maybe it's just hard fixed, like a player only gets 100 slots and that's it. If it's something like that with an upload mechanic that gives you offline protection in a limited fashion, this may completely change the game, which would be pretty awesome. Because I don't know about you, but if you're got a job and you're working, or a family and a life or something, you know, that isn't playing this game 20 hours a day, your stuff being protected is kind of a crucial mechanic that's almost required for any type of replayability. Because as soon as you lose your stuff, people just don't want to play anymore. So, if warehouses are what I've kind of speculated they might be, that would be awesome. And that's kind of it for the new elements that they mentioned. They do say the "and more" exclamation mark, but it's kind of leading. So, you know, seeing is believing, and I'm glad that they are at least giving us some news on this game. I guess we'll see what they plan to do between now and I'm assuming it's going to be the first week of July, which is when they say that they're going to roll out the new map. That's the news from the cabin. Looking forward to see what they push out in the next month or so. If you guys are interested in further coverage of Atlas, be sure to let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, I'd be super interested in your feedback, so if you could just throw a comment down in the comment section below, or reach out to me through either direct messages, join the Discord, stuff like that. I'd be super interested in your opinion on how to increase the quality of the content brought to you in both the news updates as well as the future series that are going to be coming out on the channel. Until then, I hope that you're looking forward to some of the changes that the news post has offered for us today, and let's keep our fingers crossed. It's at least some of the things that they're bringing up are actually brought into the game.